We ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:31, and I'll call on Councillor Longo to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, can we have an adoption of the amended agenda? And there's an amended agenda that we're adding 12.7, am I correct? 12.7, the motion that came from public forum today, okay? And we'll deal with that motion when we get to items for consideration. Can I get a mover and a second to adopt the agenda? I got a mover, Councillor D'Angelo, seconder, Councillor Longo, all in favor. Opposed, that is carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the open and closed minutes from Tuesday, October 3rd? I've got Councillor Decker and Councillor DeRose. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Mayor's remarks. On October 11th, we held a flag raising at City Hall to recognize Ontario Cadets Week. Joining me were Councillors O'Hare, Sentence, D'Angelo, and Didavides. City staff, Commanding Officer, Captain Teresa Parker, and there were officers and cadets here as well. Cadets programs assist young people to develop skills that serve them well in their transition to adulthood. Thank you to all the dedicated officers and cadets who have and continue to make valuable contributions to society and our community. On October 14th, Team Thorold with City Clerk Matthew Trenham and Councillor O'Hare participated in the Walk a Mile in Their Shoes event held at the Penn Centre. The walk raises awareness and funds for Gillian's Place to support survivors of gender-based violence. On October 17th, Councillor Sentence and I attended the One Thorold meeting, which focused on updates from the Truth and Reconciliation and the Affordable Housing subcommittees. As well, the latest issues of concern like food bank usage and homelessness were also discussed. On October 18th, I attended the Niagara Board of Trade and Commerce annual general meeting held at Club Capri. They announced that they will be hosting their Christmas party on Friday, November the 24th at Club Capri beginning at 7 p.m. Tickets are $20, which includes hors d'oeuvres, a free beverage, door prizes, and music by the band Shindig. Check their Facebook page and website for more details. On October 19th, I brought greetings on behalf of City Council to the FACS Niagara Celebration of Caring event held at John Michaels. They honored and recognized the foster parents and volunteers who make such a positive impact in Niagara to the well-being of children and youth across the region. On Friday, October 20th, we held the Progressive Pride flag raising on the new flagpole in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. I was joined by Councillors Decker, O'Hare, Sentence, Didavides, Regional Councillor Whalen, City staff, as well as Anthony Fior, who brought the initiative forward, and Enzo Didavides, as well as many community members. We believe in and support inclusion, diversity, equality, and acceptance of all people. In the City of Thorold, we are all one. On October 20th, we also presented Mario's Barbershop with a certificate of recognition for 55 years in business. Joining me were Councillor Sentence, Didavides, Regional Councillor Whalen, and BIA Chair Serge Carpino. Congratulations, Mario Pantano, on reaching this impressive milestone. On October 20th, we also cut the ribbon on Aura Aesthetics and Wellness, located at 16 Front Street South in our downtown. Joining me were Councillor Sentence, O'Hare, Didavitas, Regional Councillor Whalen, BIA Chair Serge Carpino, and Economic Development Manager Ken Schultens. Congratulations, all the best to Marissa Reed and her team. Thank you for setting up in your new and expanded location in our downtown. On October 22nd, I attended the closing worship service of Trinity United Church in Thorold. This beautiful stone church is 174 years old, the longest record of a building in the Niagara region to be continuously used for worship. We thank Trinity United Church and the people of the congregation for all you have contributed to our community over the years. On behalf of City Council, all the best moving forward. Also on October 22nd, I attended the Niagara Symphony Orchestra concert featuring the classics of Rodgers and Hammerstein at the PAC Center in downtown St. Catharines and presented them with the certificate in recognition of their 75th anniversary. The City of Thorold and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority are seeking volunteers to participate in the community tree planting at Lakeview Cemetery on Saturday, October 28th, beginning at 10 a.m. This tree planting marks the second phase of a two-day collaborative effort between the city and the NPCA. The initial planting session occurred in late September with support from students from Niagara College's Ecosystem Restoration Program, who collectively planted over 300 trees. Volunteers will plant a variety of native trees and shrubs in the north end of the cemetery, adjacent to an existing mature forest. Those interested in participating are invited to sign up by emailing volunteering@npca.ca. That's volunteering@npca.ca. We will be raising the Remembrance Poppy flag on Friday, October 27th at 10 a.m. at City Hall. It will stay raised to coincide with the Poppy campaign, which runs from October 27th to November 11th. The Royal Canadian Legion Branch 17 Thorold will be hosting the Remembrance Day ceremony on Saturday, November 11th at 11 a.m. at Memorial Park. The Remembrance Day Parade to Memorial Park will form up in the parking lot behind the Legion at 10:20 a.m. Please support the Toolbox Niagara campaign, which helps them provide homeless individuals in Niagara with the essentials for daily living this holiday season. Drop-off items like body wash, deodorant, toothbrushes, toothpaste, first aid items, crosswords, gloves, hats, socks, snacks, etc. to drop-off locations listed on their social media pages, which includes our City Hall, Fire Stations 2 and 4. This campaign runs through November 23rd. Together, we can make a difference. Congratulations goes out to Councillor D'Angela as we wait to see if he attains the Guinness World Record for the longest zucchini in the world. The current record holder is from Niagara Falls, who grew one in 2014 that measured in at 8 feet 3.3 inches. Councillor D'Angela's measured in at 8 feet 4.79 inches. Good luck as you wait for the final approval of your world record zucchini. Congratulations, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thanks.
On Sunday, November 5th, daylight savings times ends. Clocks fall back 1 hour at 2 a.m. A friendly reminder to practice fire safety. It's a good time to change the batteries on your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors at the same time as you change your clocks. And that's the end of my mayor's remarks. Presentations. 2025 Ontario Parasports Games bid. I'll call on Chris Charlebois, President of C2C Sports and Entertainment Incorporated, to present on the 2025 Ontario Parasports Games bid. Welcome, Chris.
I was going to say members of the public. You unfortunately stole my thunder, Mr. Mayor. I was going to acknowledge Councillor D'Angela's green thumb, so congratulations, Henry. My name is Chris Charlevoix. I'm here actually tonight presenting as the volunteer chair of the Brock Niagara Penguins. Next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know about the Brock Niagara Penguins, we are Niagara's parasport club. We currently offer 6 different sports to about 70 members across the region and are actually Ontario's largest parasport organization. We have a long-standing history of hosting many events within the community, ranging back to wheelchair basketball, as well as many provincial national tournaments. And we're actually we will be hosting the National Sledge Hockey Championships this coming May in Port Colborne. So we have a very committed group that have had a long-standing history of being involved in many events. Unfortunately, I'm joining solo tonight as actually our athlete ambassadors are trying to win gold at the National Bocce Championships this week, and many of our board members are actually traveling. So I thank you all for allowing me to be here to make the presentation tonight. Next slide, please. So why am I here? I'm here to hopefully gain your support as we look to host the 2025 Ontario Parasport Games. Back in 2020, at the time when a lot of potential was swirling with respect to Canada Games and the legacy of the Games, the future use of the facility, we were included throughout the entire process of the Games and building the facility, and were asked about potential events that we could be involved in as part of the legacy of the Games. And we had identified the Ontario Parasport Games as one of the opportunities that we could pursue to host with whomever the partners may be after everything was formed. And so 2020 was our last opportunity until 2027 to look at hosting an Ontario Parasport Games. So we submitted the bid in 2020, and as we all know, there was a bit of a halt on things for a while, and so we've continued discussions with the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport throughout. And we're at a point now where the province is asking us to enter into a transfer payment agreement, a TPA, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We have made presentations as recently as August to the consortium partners to seek their support of our bid, hopefully gaining a partner that might be able to help us enter into a transfer payment agreement. And in full transparency, there are still some details being worked out with some of the partners involved to see how or who might be able to enter into that transfer payment agreement, and I'll touch on that in a second. The reason that we went after the Parasport Games, not only as a part of the legacy from the 2022 Canada Summer Games, was also for us as a club. We don't receive provincial, municipal funding. All of our funds are generated through registration fees, donations, and sponsorships. And so right now we're operating on basically a reserve fund every year. So our intention was to also host these games as an opportunity to generate a surplus that we could use to continue funding the programs. As many of you can likely appreciate, a lot of our programs are offered at subsidized costs because of issues related to accessibility, not just from a transportation perspective, but also cost for some of our athletes as well. So I already highlighted the fact that we made the presentation to the consortium. Essentially, to give you guys background on kind of the business operations of hosting a Para Games, the province provides $135,000 in total to the organization that enters into the transfer payment agreement. $125,000 of that is provided for operating the games, so things like paying for your venues, food, transportation costs, what have you. And $10,000 of that is committed to legacy funds, so that there is, at the very least, a guaranteed legacy at the end of the event that stays within the community for whatever initiatives are identified. We have submitted and shared with the consortium partners that we anticipate an overall operating budget of about $350,000 to $400,000. And the possible risk, I suppose, if you look at it that way, is that if no dollars were raised, you'd have a possible shortfall of whatever the difference is between that operating budget and the total amount that's provided from the province. However, we fully expect that we'd be able to support any of the operating costs, from registration fees, sponsorships, etc. There is not one Ontario Games that has lost money in the history of the Games program. So again, we're hoping that we can model what Durham has done. They've continually hosted, they're on their third Ontario Parasport Games, and they've on average generated about $100,000 in surplus every time that they've hosted. So we're hoping that we can emulate that as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I mentioned, part of what we're seeking is the corporation that can enter into a transfer payment agreement. we're still sorting through, and this is hopefully something that can be addressed through one of the asks that we have of council this evening, with some further dialogue with municipal and consortium partners. We have also asked Brock if they are able to enter into the transfer payment agreement, as we are technically a club of Brock University currently. I guess as far as our role at the Penguins, we have, like I said, a committed group of volunteers that are willing to step up and be part of the organizing committee. Again, through the relationships that we had with the 2022 Canada Summer Games, we also have a number of folks with expertise that are more than capable of helping us recruit the number of volunteers that we need, the sponsorship money that we need to raise, and so on and so forth. Thank you. Next slide, please. Just for context, we also currently work with Brock and Niagara College. Both of their programs play an active role in supporting all of our programs, and certainly from an event hosting perspective, present opportunities for both institutions since they have sport management programs and experiential learning programs. And certainly if there's other organizations that we can collaborate with, we're more than happy to work with others. We have already gained a preliminary agreement from Parasport Ontario, which is the provincial body for Parasport, to work with us in our hosting efforts as well. Next slide, please. Perfect. So essentially, I'm here to ask for two requests. First off, that the City of Thorold endorses or supports our bid, ideally through a letter of support, so that we can continue this process either with the consortium and or the other municipal partners. And secondly, that Thorold staff be directed to work in collaboration with its partners and our bid committee to finalize the business plan, which might include budgets, schedules, fee waivers, and marketing for the event. Next slide, please. Sorry. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chris, and I'll open the floor to questions from council. Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. I call you Chris because we go back to the Niagara Sport Days, and that was a good time where we got a lot of events occurring in our community here in Niagara. My question is regarding a legacy project. I believe Sport Niagara came out of the Canada Summer Games as a legacy project. Now, could Sport Niagara be the leader on like doing the business plan, budget, scheduling, talking to the consortium partners? Is that where the lead should take place here for this event being organized? Because I know you're asking for City of Thorold support. You're looking at staff working with that, but I don't see us being the lead. I think someone with a technical background should be doing that. Is Sport Niagara the venue that would be doing that, or do they have that capability?
Sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor D'Angelo. We have engaged with Sport Niagara. My understanding, as far as their involvement, is that they are willing to help support us with respect to coordinating some of our volunteers or recruiting some of our volunteers through the legacy initiatives that they have at the organization, potentially supporting us in our fundraising efforts or securing grants or helping us with fundraising. My understanding through them is that they are not willing to enter into any sort of transfer payment agreement with the province, as they are not I guess a hosting organization per se, but that they will work to support organizations who are hosting their events. I guess unique to our bid, we had already submitted the bid and the business plan to the province before Sport Niagara had been formed, so we, to some extent, had already had that completed before we had any opportunity to initially engage with them.
Well, do you see another, through you, Mr. Mayor, another organization coming forward and helping support that bid? Because I know going back to the Niagara Sport Commission, we signed several documents. We brought the women's under 18, and we had to commit to making sure that that happened, and there was some financial risk there. Is that what you're asking the city here? Just to be clear, are you looking for another partner to be the lead to make sure that they would sign off on the transfer agreement? If you could give me a little bit of clarity on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The answer is it's still uncertain at this time, and that's part of the reason why we were making the request to look at the business plan. My understanding is there's the potential that Brock would enter into the transfer payment agreement, but that is still being explored at this time at the university. In that case, we would not be asking the city to enter into any sort of agreement that would require any risk to be assumed. However, if Brock is not able to sign it, we would then be looking for another organization or collection of organizations to assist us in entering into that transfer payment agreement.
I do have a further question here, but I'm not sure if Chris would be able to answer this. In terms of the consortium, they operate the facility that we lease, the collective three partners. Do we have any rights to waive fees, or would that be the consortium that has that ability?
I would say that's the consortium. Jeff, am I correct? Because the consortium would have to agree.
That's true, Mr. Mayor. That would be really part of the takeaway from tonight's direction from council, would be to sit down with the consortium partners and look at what the costs are, the schedules, and what it might mean in terms of financial or in-kind resources would have to be committed by the city. It could amount to some upfront costs for the city, or lost revenue, because we would be committing that time to this particular event.
Yeah, that sort of answers my question. Thank you. And then the last question, because I know there's other councillors that have further questions, just timing of what's required here. Is this something we could send back to staff for a report to come back to council? When are you looking for an answer? I know the endorsement could be any time, but more of the financial or more of the staff support. When do you need an answer by?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the province has been very gracious with us through COVID, as well as the moving in timelines. We have told them that we will make our best efforts to have some sort of consensus from our partners by this fall. So ideally before Christmas time, we'd be in a position to go back to the province and let them know whether we can or can't, or continue working on some of that work. What they've indicated to us, I suppose, is fortunate for us, is that we were the only group that bid on the games. However, given their planning timelines, if we don't commit, they will have to start seeking other hosts. So at this time, I'm not sure if that means we would still have first right of refusal or whatnot. So I guess my answer is the sooner the better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for all you do for the parasport. Chris, just for us that don't know, what is a transfer payment agreement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Transfer payment agreement is essentially a funding commitment from the province, which has terms and conditions that you're entering into in order to be able to deliver a particular project that you're taking on behalf of the province. So in this case, the province is the rights holder for the Ontario Games portfolio, and they're essentially providing pass-through rights, if you will, to the organization that's hosting. And so it'd be no different than many of your community organizations likely receive Celebrate Ontario funding or whatnot. In those same cases, you're entering into a transfer payment agreement that, says how you're supposed to recognize the province and how you can use your funds and so on and so forth.
You said that Brock was looking at legal advice before they committed, so that's still that's ongoing now, apparently.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and just, do you have a rough ballpark figure of what the ask would be for Thorold's taxpayers? Because we do have a small amount, under 10,000, and so compared to the consortium partners, I'm just curious if you have a ballpark figure of what the cost would be to Thorold.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this time, it'd be tough to speculate. At the end of the day, our ask of the consortium partners was to look at a potential fee waiver of the facility, and I would suggest that would be the same thing we'd be asking this council for. So I'm not as familiar with how the agreement works with the consortium partners, so I wouldn't want to give you a false estimate.
Yeah, just because I know there'd be a lot of staff time, as you alluded to earlier. Okay, thank you, Chris.
No problem.
Are there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thanks for the presentation, Chris. How many athletes, through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, how many athletes do you anticipate participating in this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would have been a good thing to include in my presentation. We're anticipating about 450 participants to be involved. Yes.
Wow. Okay. I don't really have any more questions for you. I just I'm willing to endorse this and see what happens with the rest. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Decker, and then
Thank you.
Councillor
Through you,
Longo.
Mr. Mayor. Chris, thanks for the presentation. How long do the games go on for? What's the, because the summer games went on for 2 weeks. What's the anticipated time for the para games?
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are looking at the first weekend in June. I believe it was the 6th to the 8th in 2025. So 3 days.
3 days. Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not so sure if I have a question, but a comment. Can I make that now, or is a report coming forward?
There is no report, is there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not at this time. That could be one of the directions to staff, though.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Naz.
Okay, I'll just make a comment. Again, Councillor Danger brought up Sport Niagara, it's called, correct? My understanding would be they would be the perfect ones to spearhead this. They were provided, I think, if I'm wrong, correct me, but about $3 million from the region of Niagara to look into sporting opportunities in Niagara. I'm not sure why we, as the smallest consortium member, would need to do this. No, Chris, I do support this, but I think we need to find a logical way to do this. And for the City of Thorold to be the one to endorse it and provide the support, again, it's called Brock Niagara Penguins. They're a consortium member. The region of Niagara is in there, City of St. Catharines, and Sport Niagara should tie all this together. So I'm a little wary of being the one who puts our name on the document. That's just my comment. And again, nothing against the organization, Chris. I think we just need to make sure we do this the right way.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond to that comment just to offer some
Yep.
clarity, please? I just want to be clear that through you, Mr. Mayor, the City of Thorold is not the only group that we are seeking support from. This is our first presentation related to the bid, so we will be looking for similar support from the other consortium partners as well. I just thought that would be important to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Dion.
I don't have a further question, Mr. Mayor. I'd be willing to put a motion on the floor that we support the bid and refer this back to staff for our involvement throughout this process. I don't think it's clear right now what's going to be involved, but I don't see us, I agree with Councillor Longo, as taking the lead on this, but we may have to provide a bit of information and support it. I don't see an issue with that, but there should be someone else that takes the lead with this. And Sport Niagara seems to be the one. If they're not the one, then I think Regional Council has to step back and look at what they're doing, funding an organization that's not helping great events like this in Niagara. Because the whole idea behind Canada Summer Games as a whole was develop a pot so we could continually bring international, provincial events here and have funding for that so that they could step forward. And there was supposed to be an organization to do that. The Niagara Sport Commission was the one, but in Regional Council's wisdom, they didn't want to spend a dime on it, and it faltered because it didn't have sustainable funding. So here's an opportunity to do something right for all of Niagara, and I don't think we should not participate, but I think we should have limited participation, but support this along the way so that it moves to the right leader in terms of making this happen. Because it will be good for the community, but again, it's got to be with the people with the technical skills to make it happen.
Okay. So you want to, you are good with the letter of support, but part two would be this part that he's lifted up here. Are you good with that, everyone? I just want to.
Yeah, it'd be, like, when you say additional information, definitely I want a report, just not additional information. I don't want it emailed to me.
No,
I actually
no,
want
no.
it in a report, so if that could be
Report.
definitely
Change that.
outlined.
Yep. A report. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Get clarification from Councilor DeAngelo. So you're saying to support this in principle at this time, or to make a commitment to it without knowing all the details?
Well, I'm just supporting it without financial implications at this point in time. So I think it's a great event. I think it'd be good for Niagara, but I think it should be in someone's hands to deliver, to bring the delivery to happen. It shouldn't be the City of Thorold making it happen, and the ones that are financially responsible for it. So the transfer agreement is not going to be, in my mind, coming from the City of Thorold. Either Brock, Sport Niagara, or another organization should be doing that, but we may have to provide some assistance, if need be, from a staff point of view, limited to our services, because it's not one of our core services. It's not even in our strategic plan. So I don't want to outstep that, but I don't mind supporting it, but I want to see a staff report and what, there might be some expectations I'm not fully aware of at this point in time, but that's got to come through the staff report at council before any dollar is spent.
So it should say staff report. Can you change that to staff report?
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
thoroughly. But I just wanted to direct it to staff, if they can give us any insight, if that would be the way to go before finding out any details.
Well,
Maybe Mr.
that's
Holman.
the whole idea, is to get those details.
Okay,
Councillor.
so we're not committing financially at this point. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks.
the question would be, there's two parts, though. That's part two. Is everybody good with that? We endorse, support their bid? Okay? Okay? Well, that's part one here. That City of Thorold endorse, support
Right.
their bid. Okay,
We didn't incorporate that into the motions.
okay, do that. Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you need a seconder? Because I would second your
Yeah,
motion.
that's fine. Endorse / support. Just put that / support, get rid of and. Yeah. Just like, okay. Okay, is everybody good? What's there? That council endorse, support the bid of the presenter concerning the 2025 Ontario Parasport Game, and that staff be directed to work with the presenter to provide council with additional information through a staff report respecting the city's obligations, including financial, related to the Ontario Parasports Games bid. Is there anyone want something different there? If you're not comfortable with it, now's the time. Go ahead, Councillor.
Could we add the words "in principle" to after endorse support?
Yes.
Okay? If everybody's okay with that?
Yep. Anyone else? Okay, we had a mover, Councillor D'Angelo. I had a seconder, Councillor Decker. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you, Chris, for your presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, number 10, delegations. Is the gentleman on, is he online?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Delegations, report PWCS 103-2023 respecting Weeping Tile Disconnection Program. We have a delegation from Omar Samara, resident. Is he there? He's going to be on Zoom, I think.
He's joining as a panelist now. There he is. Mr. Samara, just wanted to confirm if you can hear us.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, Mr. Samar, could you please state your name and address, and then you'll have 10 minutes maximum for your presentation.
My name is Mr. Omar Samara from 132 Clara Street. Thank you for inviting me to make follow-up remarks this evening. I much appreciate the invitation, and I also thank city staff for their written reply via the letter from Mr. Jeff Holman, Director of Public Works. I'm advocating for there to be a change in the current Weeping Tile Disconnection Program / Sump Pump Program to ensure greater equity amongst homeowners, including those of older homes or those with unique conditions, or for there to be an appropriate alternative solution provided. There are housing issues in the entire Niagara region associated with the inability of controlling the excessive amounts of groundwater and an increasing inability to control such environmental water-related problems that are constantly deteriorating or flooding many homes, including ones that don't fall under the current sump pump program criteria. The definition of the Weeping Tile Disconnection Program only explains the program, but it does not address the reasons as to why homes that do not have basements or that do not have a weeping tile system that is connected to the sanitary sewer cannot qualify for any type of government support. This, unfortunately, does not provide an equitable solution to homeowners that find themselves in unique circumstances who do not have basements and are experiencing flooding and potential ongoing structural issues or damages to their inability to get them properly fixed. An alternative to the city current bylaw should be provided by either including homes without a basement in the Weeping Tile Disconnection Program, or by creating a new out-of-the-box program that includes supporting these homes. The following 4 examples are some of the challenges experienced by homeowners who do not fall under the current bylaw criteria. A, even after consulting with numerous numbers of plumbers and contractors, they cannot find where the discharge line of the sump pump should be located, and or on which side of the house it should be channeled. B, since no plumber or contractor can predict how the city of Thorold would handle such stormwater drainage challenges that some homes are having, contractors are hesitant to take on the job. C, due to the city's current inability to support these homes, the owner is left amiss to figure out how to drain the excess water coming from neighboring properties, especially in the spring, autumn, and winter seasons. D, the current bylaw prevents the city from either suggesting a design plan and or preventing the city from recommending a particular plumbing or waterproofing company that can successfully fix these issues. Please note, even though some homeowners are consulting with numerous plumbing companies, most plumbing contractors suddenly become disinterested in taking on a job that includes dealing with anything that has to do with city permits. Consequently, the city should at the very least provide homeowners with solutions through the city's own private contractors so that a work design plan can be drafted that will be approved by the city. Also, to ensure greater equity, if homes that do not have basements or weeping tiles are not included in the current program, can there at least be a subsidy for these homeowners? In other words, ideally, if the city's referrals can fix the problems that require solutions for homes that don't qualify for the sump pump program, can we consider including these homes in the program and at least subsidize the costs that are going to be overtaxing on some homeowners who are facing severe housing conditions? The city should at least outline the design plan for the sump pump installation so that homeowners can work based on an established city standard in a timely manner. The current sump pump program neglects older homes with no basement or weeping tiles that experience all kinds of obstacles and challenges to get a legitimate permit on their own for a sump pump installation. I am therefore imploring you to please take into consideration the outlined facts and support some additional homes to avoid structural damage due to excessive amounts of water. Therefore, I also need to appeal the current sump pump program by suggesting that it should not place those who apply based on a first-come, first-served modality, but rather based on the unbearable or unlivable state of emergency or conditions of the home itself, and the amount of work and money that has already been spent by the owners of the property to try to fix the problem before it's too late. And we have not yet approached winter. In closing, I would like to add that homeowners with whom I have discussed my problems have wondered why the city of Thorold did not yet respond to why the sump pump program as a whole is being put on hold. Even for homes that do qualify, despite the fact that Thorold is the #1 economically thriving city in the entire Niagara region. That leads to my next question. How much funding is in the budget for this year and next year for the sump pump program? And how is that money being utilized on a yearly basis? I would be interested to know if any city councilors have ever worked on this issue and their experience and that of their constituents. I am most eager and happy to be part of the solution that affects us all, and thank you for your considerations.
Thank you very much, Omar, and I'm going to open the floor for questions to Omar from council. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Omar, thank you. I turn this over now. We'll put the report on the floor. PWCS 103-2023 Weeping Tile Disconnection Program. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hanley and then Councillor Sentence. Okay, and we'll put that up. So that the report be received for information, and the floor is open for any questions to Jeff or staff. Go ahead, Councillor Dan.
Just to answer a few questions, how much is it, how much does the city subsidize per individual, and what is in the budget, and are there people taking advantage of it, of the program?
Do we have those figures, Jeff, or go ahead, Steve? Steve Santo, Manager of Public Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's different costs for different homes. It's based on the contractor going in and determines how much work is involved in installing the backflow preventer and disconnecting the weeping tile. I'm not sure exactly the total amount of the budget. I think it's around $100,000 a year, and no one is taking advantage of it because each home is inspected by ourselves. We go in camera to determine whether it qualifies or not. Once it qualifies, we do contact the contractor, and then we send them over for an estimate.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can you give a ballpark? Is it 500 to 2,000 potentially for cost to do one of these?
I think they're around
To hold you to it.
between
We won't tell
5 to
anyone.
10,000 per home.
All right, because I know citizens that have taken advantage to help that help with them, but they've also contributed in putting weeping tile around the house. So it's very expensive for them to do that, but they manage a large portion of it while the city does. If they qualify, they'll do the sump pump, and I know usually in areas that have poor separation between storm and sanitary. That wasn't completely done because of various reasons. So I know there's citizens that are using this program at times, and it's been beneficial. But I guess my question in this particular case, what would the sump pump, not being an engineer,
So at this particular house, it would take the groundwater that is being directed underneath his concrete and discharge it back onto the ground, and then it would go back under the concrete and discharge it back up. The sump pump, in this case wouldn't actually work for him. He has more of a lot creating issue. So if we can direct the water, or he can direct the water in a different direction other than his concrete slab, which is, he has an on-slab house, that would be beneficial to him.
Okay, that's what I thought, the way the sump pump works. It moves water around. It doesn't get rid of it unless you have a lot grading. You can't divert water properly. A lot of people have water issues, so they try to work with swales and other issues to try to move the water around away from the house. But I know they don't get compensated, and I think it's been a standard practice, unless you have sewage backing up into your basement, that the sump pump was mostly efficient for that. So, yeah, I guess this gentleman will have to look at some mechanism of diverting water on the outside to avoid it coming close to his house. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, items for consent. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the items of consent? I got Councillor Decker and I got Councillor Sentence. And now I'll ask council which items, if any, that they want to pull. So can I please let me know. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
I have 11.3,
Yep.
11.6, 11.8, 11.11, 11.13, and 11.14.
Can you give me the last three? Sorry, I got 11.8, and then what did you say after?
11.11,
Yeah,
11.13, and 11.14.
okay. Are there any others? Go ahead, Councillor Longo. Okay, so far I have 11.3, 11.6, 11.8, 11.11, 11.13, and 11.14.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, is everybody good with those? Are there other ones? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 11.1 and 11.7, thank you.
11.1 and 11.7. Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 11.4, please.
11.4. Okay. Anyone else? I want to do a change on 11.5 if council is interested, and that's the council meeting schedule, so I'll pull 11.5. Okay? So we might as well go through them because almost everyone's been pulled, and that's fine. But we have a mover and a second. We're going to use the same mover and seconder on every one, and then we'll deal with them one at a time. So 11.1, go ahead. That's correspondence from the regional clerk respecting recommended motion from Women of Ontario Say No regarding legislative amendments to improve municipal codes of conduct. Right? Is that the one you wanted?
No, 11.1 is from the regional clerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I just said.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
No. Do I speak to it first, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just very briefly, I won't take a lot of time with this, but the region has asked us, municipalities in Niagara, to endorse this declaration to declare that intimate partner violence and gender-based violence is an epidemic. I'm just going to read two facts and then a very brief statement. So every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner, every 6 days. In Niagara region in 2022, there were 5,160 intimate partner violence calls. Well, those are astounding figures. And so I just want to say, gender-based violence and intimate partner violence is on the increase. We heard that when the city clerk, Matthew Turnham, and I were involved in the walk a mile in her shoes. It's on an increase, not only in Niagara, and this is troubling. Niagara Region has put forth a motion on the Renfrew County inquest to support the urgency to have the province of Ontario to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. I'm asking council to endorse this motion and join over 40 municipalities who have done so already. And through this small action, we hope that more funding, support, and education will be provided and directed to the agencies offering help and hope.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hare. Is there anyone else that has a comment on that? Seeing none, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 11-2, no one pulled that. We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 11-3, CLKC 79-2023, Parks, Trails, Recreation Advisory Committee, options for hosting the Niagara Special Olympics floorball event. Did you pull that one, Councillor D'Angelo?
Yes,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor.
Go
I
ahead.
pulled that. I just wanted to speak to it because I think we're gonna get a lot of these requests to be co-sponsors, to be part of this. And again, our staff isn't the one with the expertise on this. Again, we had a presentation here. The Sport Niagara should be the lead role in this and working with potentially our economic development department to move stuff like this forward. But I just don't want to see all these requests pile up onto our staff to deal with these, and the expectation is that we deal with all these, because next week, there's a tournament going on with something all the time. Where do we draw the line in terms of what we can do within our community? And like I said, I'm looking at our strategic plan. It doesn't even fall within our strategic plan. The closest thing would be is to continue to advance regional economic development partnerships. If that falls in that category, it's a tier 2. If not, there's nothing on the 4 tiers of business and economic growth. So I think we need to park these or put them to an organization that can do a better job of getting these done on a timely basis. Because I said, the city, we struggle with some other issues that are our core services at times, and that's where we need to really focus our resources. So I'm really looking forward to the strategic plan being started soon, because this one ends in 2023, and we need some guidance and direction for staff.
Do you want to refer this to the Niagara Sports group? Would that be?
I have no problem doing that, the Sport Niagara.
We want to keep it on the table. We'll send it to them and see.
Well, this is something, that's just my feeling. I think council really has to discuss this through and see what role they want to play with staff moving forward, so we know how, because there'll be more and more of these coming forward, and how is our staff going to react? So we need to give them some direction from a policy level.
And Councillor Sant, you sit on that, so you might want to enlighten us.
Yeah, just some background on it. So they're looking for a host for next year. There was no talk of financial commitment, staff commitment, or anything. Really, what they were looking for is potential floor space. So I was talking with Dave Baldoni. Our ice is out in March, and the old arena, I think we'll be out of there, and the operations center will be open. We won't be in there anymore. So they were looking at floor space to potentially host this. So just asking staff, and I'm for referring it back to Sports Niagara if you want, to see what the possibility is, because they need a host. So nothing has been asked financially or of staff necessarily to do much other than use the floor space right now and sponsor it. So yeah, if you want to refer it back to that, that's where it was coming from the committee. They need a host. It'd be a great thing to host.
How do you want to handle that? Do you want to do that, or do you want to get some input from the Sports Commission? Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, and I agree with both councillors' comments. The only thing is, when we're getting asks like this, and I have to reiterate what Councillor D'Angelo said, it's going to keep escalating because of our location, because of the location of the Canada Summer Games build. I think we need prices. How much is it going to cost taxpayers? That's my concern. Just to openly support all this is great in principle, because of course, I do support Special Olympics 100%, 110%, and I just need numbers attached to all these requests. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to speak from a bit of experience here. In the past, I've volunteered at Special Olympics for numerous years. I've run tournaments like this, although not floorball, but swimming, and the funding never seemed to be a problem for this organization. They were very, very good at fundraising. So I'm not quite sure what they're asking for, if they're asking for a little bit of help, but I don't think they need our help in running the events. We did a great job, and they still do a great job doing it. So I think we need a little bit more of a specific ask on what they'd like.
Should we get them to come and present to council?
Potentially.
Does that sound good for council? We get them to come here like the presentation today, and so we can gather more information? How's that sound?
Because this goes beyond just the local chapter. There's a provincial organization, there's a national organization. This is what they do. They do this all the time. So they could probably teach us a few things.
I bet, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so depending on what is being decided today, I can amend the current motion.
So why? So the amendment is that we ask them to come and make a presentation to council. Is everybody good with that? Okay.
Just have to.
Go ahead, Councillor.
You also include what's going to be expected of staff and financials. I think we need to know
In that presentation, we hope that would include that, you know.
So there will be a report, just to be clear on what's being asked.
We're asking them to, we're reaching out to them to come and make a delegation or to council, okay? Just like what we had today with the other group. A presentation from them, okay?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, again, so we get clarity, maybe Niagara Sports should come here and present too and see what they can offer for Niagara, and we have a better idea who we can direct to them and what they actually do in terms of promoting sporting events.
It's a good idea.
I know the Niagara Sports Commission came here several times with presentations, so.
No, it's a good point, and I think that would be, we should reach out to them as well to come and do a presentation.
If you could maybe add that as a second, like item 2 on this, that way.
So can you name both organizations that are included in this amended motion?
Well, the first one is this one, right here, that's in the motion, Special Olympics, Niagara Special Olympics is who we're asking to come here, and we're also asking Sports Niagara to come and make a presentation as well.
But that could be a separate one.
Well, it can be part of this, so that way we got it captured. Okay?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful for council, for both groups to be here.
Yeah, and they don't have to be here at the same meeting. Okay? So, okay, we've got that. Everybody good with that? Okay, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 11-4. Who pulled 11-4? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose. That's amendment to bylaw 31-2023, a bylaw to establish certain offices in the city of Thornton.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any way we can wait till our organizational review is completed before we keep hiring people? Is there a deadline for that or a date that's going
I
to be?
don't think that's what this is, but I'll get Jason to comment.
My bad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This bylaw amendment is just identifying existing positions that have been filled, that have been vacant and have now been filled, and they're just appointing those employees to their positions.
Okay, so just for clarity, there's not any new positions created?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 11.5, council meeting calendar. I just want council to look at one thing and get your feedback on it. Can you call that, can you put the schedule up? Give me, yeah, can you put the whole thing up? But I just want to pinpoint July and August. Okay, I just want to pinpoint one thing. It shows 2 meetings in July and no meetings in August. I thought it would be better if we moved the July 30th meeting to August 13th. So that we spread it out, so we have 1 meeting a month rather than go a whole month plus without a meeting. Can I get input? Does everybody think that that makes sense? I would take the July 30th and move it to the 13th of August, which would be the week before AMO, and it splits it, I think it splits it up better. Feedback from council. Go ahead, Councillor Durant.
I agree 100%, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Second it or bring it to the floor.
Councillor O'Hare?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, can we not move that to August 6th? And
No, we're moving it to August 13th.
I know, that's what you're proposing. I'm asking, can we move it to August 6th? Because my reasoning is that it's fewer weeks from July 9th and still offers 3 weeks left in the month.
I think they try and stay away if possible from the day after the long weekends, that's why.
Because the offices close on Monday. Can't get your request to.
Exactly. Does anybody are they good with that, or do you have other suggestions? Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I like the schedule the way it is. It gives a bit of a break in August. I know, because we have reports coming forward, staff have to prepare those reports, so it takes some of their vacation time away to start moving meetings around. I sort of like the way it looks. I think they whoever produced this did a good job this year because they kept them off the holidays. And traditionally, August is usually a slower month for reports. Staff are on holidays. Not that business closes, but it slows down a bit. It's a time of year where it does. And then there's some conferences that are in there. So I would rather just leave it the way it is as opposed to moving one into August.
Anyone else? Okay, so.
I have a question
Yeah.
for the CAO. Is there a reason why it was devised this way? Is it better for staff this way?
This is the proposal from staff, and again, we'll be okay if you move from 30th to August 13th. Both are fine. The only thing that we want to avoid a long weekend. We have heard that last year when we are devising the calendar. So typically, if you look at for this year, we had it on August 1st, but this time. So staff is okay from both perspective. If you want to leave it as is, we are fine with it. If you want to move it, that's okay. We'll just seek council direction on that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Day.
I'm good if you want to move it. It gives 4 weeks in between if they have stuff to work on, from the 9th to the 13th.
Okay, so,
What, from the?
go ahead, Councillor
July
Sen.
9th to August 13th, from the 30th to the 13th.
30, okay, so we're gonna move the 30th to the
Well,
13th. Yeah.
Councillor D'Angelo likes to leave it. That was my suggestion. I'm gonna leave it to council to decide.
Yeah, I don't mind the 13th because having one in there and just before AMO. So I'm okay with either, but I'm okay with the 13th. Thank you.
Councillor Durant.
Can I put a motion on the floor to do the 13th, switch it the 30th to the 13th?
Yes, you can. Can I get a seconder for that, Councillor O'Hare? And here's the way it goes. We'll vote on that, and if everybody agrees, we'll move it there. If not, we'll revert back to the original schedule. Okay, just so you know what you're voting on. Okay? So the motion is to move the 30th of July to the 13th of August, and
Let me bring.
the rest of the schedule stays as is. With the following amendment, okay? That's the go ahead, Counselor, Jason, sorry. Counselor Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the promotion, but I'll pass. I just wanted to identify that in the amendment, it identifies the year 2023, it should be 2024.
Good point. You're on the ball. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so the schedule is everything that was there except the one amendment, which is July 30th moves to August 13th, okay? Okay, we're on 11.6. Heritage Advisory Committee endorsement of Indigenous displays at the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, and Councillor O'Hare, you pulled that, am I correct? No. Or Councillor DeAngelis, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no issue with working on this. The only thing I'd like to see is more of a strategic plan with this. We have several other locations within our community, and I think it might be good for the mayor and maybe staff to meet with the senior Indigenous leaders to come up with a plan, so we're not doing this, again, every month. If there's identifiable municipal buildings, parks, like Lock 7, anywhere, that we come up with a bit of a plan in place and see how we can move forward, as opposed to just doing ad hoc. Like it's, when you start doing that, then you lead into issues of, okay, well, should we have done something over there? Let's do it over there. Now it costs us twice as much because we're repeating it. So I think there could be some economies, and then working with the Indigenous leaders to come up with a very respectful plan that's throughout Thorold. This way we can see the artistic work throughout our community, which would be great, as opposed to just working site by site.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to speak on that? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your concerns, Councillor D'Angelo. I'm just going to read a brief piece here to give you a better understanding of why the Battle of Beaver Dams Park was chosen. So the Battle of Beaver Dams Park is named after a pivotal victory in the War of 1812, which was won mainly due to the Indigenous warriors fighting for the British. Yet, their involvement is mentioned only in a half sentence on the battlefield cairn. Even more importantly, Indigenous culture is not defined by colonial history. The park is full of heritage monuments and plaques commemorating various aspects of Thorold's history, but no presence is given in this park to the people of whose land our city was built on. The Heritage Committee, on behalf of and in consultation with Indigenous advocate Michelle Elise Burnett, is asking Council to endorse the idea of a visible display of Indigenous culture and heritage at the Battle of Beaver Dams Park to be conceived and directed by the Indigenous arts community. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Sentence. I'll get back to you, Councillor Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely agree with Councillor O'Hare, but as to the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, but I do agree with what you're saying as well as a further setup to see what else can be done elsewhere. So I don't know if that's a friendly amendment to it or if that's something we look at later, but I agree with both of you.
Well, can we add that as a second bullet point? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate, I'm not trying to stop this project nor devalue this project in any fashion. It's always quite understandable history. The battle didn't take place there, so I don't want to leave the actual site off the, there's a monument actually at the location of the battle site. I want to make sure that's also well represented. There's also, we went on a tour, and there's some lands that the surrender took place, like that hasn't really been established or documented or displayed. Like, so, and I agree, the Indigenous played a critical role in the victory in the War of 1812 here in Thorold. That's what I'm saying. I just don't want it isolated to one specific location. Not stopping the current location. Let's move forward. Let's look at a plan of where else we can do this to honor those of the past. And I think to me, that's critical. So I'd rather see a comprehensive plan without delaying the current plan. Thank you.
Does that capture what you're looking for, Councillor?
Yeah, that suits my intent.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
if I could, through you, just to add a site there. I know that Mr. Hughes, a Thorold resident, one time used to be a Brock professor, was working on a historian area, which in fact is now owned by HOPA. The actual foundation of the home where General Fitzgibbon signed the surrender, that foundation still exists. It was part of, that's where the battle actually occurred. So maybe we could, I was hoping that maybe, I know the previous owners wouldn't allow us to on the site or anybody on there. I don't know if the current owners would.
Councillor Sentence.
That's a good point. I didn't know that was a thing. Row of trees there planted for the occasion as well. So HOPA and their people have talked with Fred Neal and different people to do a ceremony there and a dedication.
Yeah, I don't think they want access every day, but maybe like on a day or 2 days a year, we could do something there.
Yeah.
So it's in the works is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo, and then Councillor O'Hare.
Yeah, I just want to say that was the one reference I was making to it,
Yeah,
Councillor Henley, on our tour, was the HOPA property. But if we can't access the property on a regular basis, signage out on the road would be nice too. So people, anyone driving by can see that and see the historical significance of it. So I concur with you 100%.
Thank you. Councillor O'Hare.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're losing track a little bit of what this is about. This isn't about honoring, solely honoring the brave warriors who fought in the Battle of Beaver Dams. This is about also establishing a presence, an Indigenous presence in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. These are two very different issues, and I do have a little bit of a conflict when we write something like the council directs staff to develop a plan in consultation. I mean, I think what we maybe perhaps should do is invite Michelle Elise Burnett to come to council and also speak to us about their vision of a presence in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, and then take it from there. Because it seems a little bit like we're guiding this too much, where it should be in their hands to decide how things are developed and created to honor their heritage.
I know they're working through One Thorold Truth and Reconciliation Committee on some other initiatives with Michelle Elise Burnett throughout the city.
And she does know about this as well. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to come here and speak to us. So I'm just worried about
No, but they were,
moving.
she's working with them, and they are going to be coming to council, I think, early next year once they develop some of the things that they have that they want to continue to move forward on.
Again, I have difficulty with to direct staff to develop a plan. This is
well, why don't we
not
just,
our role.
Why don't we just put that we work to develop a plan in consultation instead of, if you want to expand on it. I know where you're coming from, but I also, instead of council
it's not our ownership to take possession of.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we should lay off it if you want, invite her here to speak about the park and how we can establish, or they're, not we, how they, as Indigenous artists and representation, would like to see happen in the park. It's their story, it's their history, their heritage.
I know. Where are we heading with this? I guess that's my question. Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we have to have that in there? Leave that until they come to make their presentation and then direct them to work together to find different,
I know they're working on that through One Thorold. Do we want to wait until they come to council? Are you good with that, Councillor D'Angelo? It's not fallen by the wayside because
I don't
it
want to play
is.
antics with wordsmithy. Take it out and then let's.
They are going to be coming to council, and there are more initiatives they're working on.
Yes, we work with multi-faceted groups in our community. Now, our job is to get staff to do the work, right? And we have to direct them. But if we can't direct them, then they don't do anything. So if you want, I'll wait till we get the presenter.
Wait till they come,
I have
so
no
let's
issue
get
with
rid of that.
But it'll be
and
hard
then-
directing staff at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so for clarity, we'll revert back to the original motion.
Correct. Okay, so the original motion, we've had a discussion on it. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CWCD 290-23 and CWCD 292-2023. Who pulled this one? 11-7. Councillor O'Hare, go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this one has a little bit of a tie-in with the earlier item of consent from the Niagara region, the correspondence about, the correspondence that we had regarding Women of Ontario Say No. And this is, this one is related to Bill 5, which was recently defeated in the Ontario provincial legislature. And Bill 5 was about stopping harassment and abuse by local leaders. Even though in this year, AMO and 160 municipalities endorsed it. What it boils down to is that at present, elected officials are not held accountable for violence or harassment in the municipal workplace. We as elected members should not preside above the law. So we need better and stronger tools in our code of conduct, and I'd like to call upon Thorold's Council to endorse the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's motion calling for government legislation on this issue. And the motion was included in our agenda, and there it is. One of the reasons this is being brought to the floor right now is when Councillor Didavides and myself were at AMO this summer, there was an opportunity to question our ministers. There were 30 ministers on stage in front of us. And when a female councillor stood up and asked who had been abused and harassed in the workplace as a councillor, why this bill was defeated, not a single minister stood up and answered her and gave her a reasoning why this bill should not have been passed. She had to endure this, but should not have been put in this position. So I'm asking our council to endorse this and send it to the provincial government in support of having this revisited, perhaps even in the fall, still before the year ends, and reintroducing this bill and passing it. We should not be above the law in any case, not in this situation. So
Okay.
that's everything. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence and then Councillor Hanley.
I won't endorse it, because I believe the reason that it was defeated in the legislators because they didn't want then it going to the Supreme Court of Canada because it may have infringed what the wording was in regards to people's rights and the Constitution or the Canadian Charter rights. So that's probably one of the reasons, and I'm knowing that's part of the reason. So I can't endorse it, seeing that our provincial legislator didn't endorse it because of the legal ramifications that could come from it. So I'm not going to endorse it either.
Go ahead, Councillor Sens.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will endorse this. I was shocked to see that they turned it down. I can't imagine sending my daughter into the workplace and this can be condoned and there can be really no ramifications for it. So I will endorse this. Thank you.
Just as a correction,
Yeah.
this deals with in legislative workplaces, not in the general workplaces. That's what that bill was about.
That's correct.
It was
That's
about
correct.
legislative.
Yes,
so
because
it's got nothing to do with.
workplaces, a lot of them have their own policy.
That's right. It's got nothing to do with general workplaces. It only has to do with legislative workplaces.
That's correct. Anyone else to speak on it? Okay, no, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 11.8 DF 19 2023 Canada Summer Games Agreement Summary and Financial Statement of 2022. And I think Councillor DeAngelo, did you pull that?
Well,
I'm sure there's going to be more than you speak on it, but did you pull it?
Yeah, I just have one specific question. I know we had a 5-page letter from our solicitor describing the ownership. And after reading this, I guess I want to, this is my interpretation of it. I just want to make sure I'm correct, that basically we're just, the land and is owned by Brock, and we're just basically leaseholders for the next 38 years according to the agreement. Is that my interpretation? Is that correct?
Well, the way I read it is that we're the consortium partners are owners until the lease is up, and then it reverts back to the leaseholder unless they extend the lease. That's like a standard lease agreement.
Well, then you just answered my question. We are leaseholders, not owners.
Well, it's, if you read the thing, it says owners, and then when the lease reverts back to the owner of the land. There's two parts to that I read. That's the way I read it. And that's the way...
Maybe we should ask Mr. Richardson to come and present so we could ask him, because it's a 5-page letter.
Anyways.
I don't know that.
I'm not, but it's a standard lease agreement. That's what it is. Okay? It's a standard lease agreement that basically was explained to us during the process. Go ahead, Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to you, my concern is at the last meeting, I put a motion on the floor to seek legal advice in regards to the Canada Game lease agreement, and this council voted it down 5-4 in a recorded vote, but yet then 7 days later, somebody from the city went and solicited an opinion, and when I read it, it's more confusing than it ever was. Are we owners? Are we not owners? Was the solicitation, if I could ask you, Mr. Mayor, to Tom Richardson, because of at the last meeting, even though I wasn't here, when I reviewed it and that stuff, you were under the understanding, Mr. Mayor, that we were owners, and I think Ms. Moore was under the understanding that we were leasees. The public's even confused. Do we own it or don't we own it? That's why I was wanting last week, hopefully the motion would go forward so we could get an actual opinion, because I don't think Mr. Richardson's going to say, well, it wasn't a good deal, but here we are still 4 years later. Half the room says we own it, half the room says we don't own it. So we do need some kind of legal opinion, but my question is, why did we go out and solicit an opinion when council voted against going to get one? We voted against it. I put the motion to the floor to seek a legal opinion in regards to the lease agreement with the Canada Games, and 7 days later we sought an opinion. Is that because there are people in this room that believe that we do own it?
No, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Mayor, there was a conversation. I've got the motions, January 17th, May 2nd. Council requested that we come back to you with not only the financials, but also the summary of the agreements. There was discussion that request was made to our lawyers back in August. Following the conversation that was at the last meeting, staff suspected that this issue would again be part of the discussion, and we asked for further clarification from the solicitor in conjunction with the agreement summaries that they did as well.
Okay, because that's, okay, I appreciate that. That's because the whole confusing thing is nobody knows if we own it or if we don't own it. All they know is we got a lease agreement, and it's not 40 years, it's 38. Like I said,
It's 40 years from the start of construction,
but
it's 38 after it was turned over.
38-year lease. So that's why my motion got defeated, but it'd be nice to know if we do or if we do not own it.
Anyway, who else wants to speak on this? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to ask any questions because I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I don't think it's fair because nobody in this room wrote the agreement. But, Mr. Mayor, this is far from a standard lease agreement. This is, I believe we spent $200,000 for these agreements, so I wouldn't say it's standard because if it was, we overpaid. I go back to what I said last week, and it was referenced in the letter from Mr. Richardson. Notwithstanding any provision of any laws, the parties acknowledge and agree that as between the landlord, that's Brock University, and the tenants, and for all purposes, the buildings are and shall remain the property of the tenant until the termination or determination of the lease, at which time the same shall, subject to section 18.2 hereof, become the property of the landlord without any payment or compensation to the tenant. I'm surprised Mr. Richardson's not here tonight to explain this once and for all, because you've got people who read legal agreements and read one thing and somebody reads another. My understanding from what I'm reading through this agreement, which I've read for a number of years now, is we may be considered some sort of quasi-owner for the next 36 years because we're 2 years into it.
Yep.
But in 36 years, the potential is there that we have nothing. And the landlord will have a building which has been maintained to a higher degree than any other building that the city of Thorold maintains, because we put hundreds of, there's millions of dollars, over $1 million per year put into capital renewal for this building. So again, I'm shocked that our legal representation isn't here tonight to solve this once and for all, because it's one way or the other. It's either we do or we don't, and from what I read, we don't. And that's unfortunate. I brought this up 3 years ago and nobody wanted to listen. We discussed it in the back room and nobody wanted to listen or try to figure out an alternative. So I guess my answer is no, it's not a standard lease agreement, and no, we own nothing in 36 years, and it's unfortunate.
But I will state this, that the money we spent was not just for the document, it's the whole consortium agreement. It's a big wholesome agreement.
Right, Mr. Mayor, I agree. There are two agreements.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a consortium and a co-tenancy agreement.
Yeah,
Two agreements, and they're both about 40 pages long, and we spent $200,000. It is not a standard lease agreement. It's far from it. It's actually a very good agreement from one party has a great deal, I believe, and the other three, not so good. But nobody wanted to ask the questions before we signed it, other than a few people, and we are stuck with it. So we're going to live with it, and we're going to have to do the best. And in 38 years, the people who are around, which will be none of us, will have to figure out where they go from there.
Well, actually, it happens at the end of 30 years, it gets reviewed to see if they're going to go beyond.
Correct, but the
So
landlord...
that decision will be made after 30 years.
But it's not made by the tenants, it's made by the landlord. And the landlord has the ability to say that they don't want to extend the lease for the land, so they own the building. Mr. Mayor, if I was them, I'd take the $1 billion building, because that's what it'll be worth.
Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to read Article 4.1A from Mr. Richardson's letter. And it says the landlord covenants that as of the commencement date, the landlord is the owner of the lands in fee simple. So that is clear. It's their land to start off with. And what is recognized as theirs at the end is the land. So the buildings will be further owned or possessed by the consortium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read this over at least 10 times. I totally disagree with Councillor O'Hare. If you read between the lines and do some inferencing, the landlord owns everything at the end of 36 years from now. And it says it right in there. If you go to the top of page 4, which time become property of the landlord without any payment or compensation to the tenant. There's the $100 million question right there. The last line in the first paragraph of page 4. And I think this is a crappy deal. I don't understand how lawyers would have agreed to this. If it was their money, they never would have. And we have nothing. They're calling us an owner now because we're paying for capital renewal and all the expenses. Once everything's 38 years goes by, we own nothing. It goes to the landlord. So you might have to read it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have been doing this for 4 years. We had this information in front of us when we had the, Democratic vote, and we voted 6-3 years ago. We had this information in front of us as to this wording, this type of thing, what was going to go on. After 30 years, we could get out if we want to get out, which might be beneficial to us at that point. Maybe the people at the time have the money to spend 30, 40, 50 million of their own money to build this thing. For me, I feel like I was going to defend myself. For the price of, we had an arena go down, for the price of what it costs to get into another arena, plus more, this was worth it. So that's where I was at. That's why I voted for it. And I think in 30 years, people can make a decision that'll be sitting around these tables and they can say, do we want to continue? Do we not want to continue? They still have 8 years after that to continue on if they want to and beyond. So I don't think this is a crappy deal. I think this was a great deal that came at a good time, and we got it pre-COVID prices when we built this building. If we were a little bit later, we would be looking at double the amount of money to build this. So from my point of view, and I've been respectful, I understand, believe me, I understand you guys are against this. But from my point of view and 6 other point of views, this was worth it for what we needed. And I'll stand by that 100 times. I'll vote for this 100 times.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to correct fact. It was said that this was in front of us and we had a Democratic vote on it. This was never in front of us. This was behind the scenes. Everybody can acknowledge that. The public had no chance to look at it. And when council even voted on this agreement, these 2 agreements, it was not included in the council package, which was very, very, all right, I'll watch my words. It was done in ways that things are never done. The legal agreements were not part of the bylaws we passed, and if they were, people would have been able to see what we were voting on. We were, in fact, sequestered to a private room at City Hall and had the document put in front of us and told we could not make a copy of it, we could not leave with it, we could only read it. That's no way to do business. And for the councillors that weren't here, that's the fact. That's what was done.
So, in all due respect to Councillor Longo, we followed the procedure that we were guided by our legal advice, and that's the way it happened. We hired lawyers to put everything together, and we followed their guidance. That's what happened. Okay, are we ready to put this on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Deck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to agree with Counselor Sentence. I'm not, I made that decision as well, and I stand by it. And I'm ready to put this to rest as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point I want to bring up here is because I have citizens ask me, do we own the building? They're telling me we own, some tell me we lease. It's been a year, and it took me a year to get an answer to it, that we lease the building. That's the question I was asking for. That's the angle I was coming at, trying to get some information here. As for that decision, that rests on the previous council, and some people like it, some people don't. But my question that I was trying to answer was, who owns the building? So Brock owns the land, we have a lease with the consortium, and at 38 years from now, or 40, 36, I've heard 3 numbers now, sounds like the tree planting.
36 left. That's what.
36 left. At that point in time, then who knows what will happen, because that'll have to be decided at that point in time. But I do have another question. I know the budget numbers were put in here for 2023, and the Director of Finance may not have the answer, but how are we trending with the budget for the 2023? The actuals for 2022 and the budget were there, and we were over by $250,000. Just wondering if we are trending in that same direction, or are we trending? If she doesn't have the answer now, I don't expect it. I was just looking at the numbers.
No, that's a fair
Through Mr. Mayor, we did provide council with just a snapshot to the end of June, and at that point, we were about $7,000 over the trend. We hope to bring the next quarterly, which will take us to the end of September, to the next council meeting. So we'll provide you with, the actual trend to third quarter.
Okay, thank you. And then I know one of the questions I'll be asking the Niagara Sport Commission is, we have a lot of unsold ice. We have a budget of $67,000. I want to see them and the consortium put a better effort in reducing that wastage, or come up with a plan that our community can use to utilize that ice. So if we're going to pay for it, we might as well give it away and use it, as opposed to having it sit there. So I'm very concerned from that standpoint, and I'll be bringing that up during that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DS 11.9, 11.10 were pulled. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 11.11, quarterly bylaw enforcement statistics, DS 63, 2023. And who pulled that one? Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report. It's very helpful in determining what's happening regarding bylaw enforcement in our community. So I'm glad to see the report. I do have a few questions, and I'm going to start with the first one. I see we have the residential rental licensing, and so there's numbers in that box. My question is that just for licenses, or does that also include anyone that's been charged for not having a license and operating a rental property?
Jason, can you answer that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are 2 rows within the table that identify residential rental licensing. The first one at the top of the table identifies the number of complaints pertaining to residential rental licensing that have been investigated. And I don't have the data to identify what sort of penalties may have been issued as in association with those, but typically some form of penalty would have been issued. And the row at the bottom of the table identifies the number of licenses that have been issued.
And one other question I have regarding the rental housing properties. Are we also tracking complaints via the region? Like, are we documenting? There's city complaints, and then there's also regional complaints, depending on the nature of the residential property. Like, if you leave your garbage out at the end of the curb, that's a regional issue, not a city issue.
So are we capturing the regional ones?
Yes.
That's a good question. Are we capturing the regional ones, or is there a way we can get them to make sure that we get those that information? Because I know a lot of, especially on the waste management side, is if it's at the curb, it's being handled at the regional level.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so if the city of Thorold receives a complaint, I believe the question is pertaining to waste management. If the city of Thorold receives a complaint, it is logged and then transferred over to the region. But we do not have statistics regarding complaints that go directly to the region.
Okay, maybe if, I'll leave that with Mr. Simpson, if he can maybe investigate that. I know I make several calls based on constituents or citizens that call me regarding waste management issues. I call the region directly because I know they're responsible for it. So I think it's important specifically for the rental properties, because if we're going to look at a graduated licensing system and they are not responding very adequately with their garbage plan on their property, I think that there may be a penalty for that.
I think Catherine's group would have no problem sharing that information. Something we can look at. I think it's a point well taken.
Okay, I got a couple more bylaw ones too. So regarding complaints, our bylaw system here is complaint driven. Now, do the complaints have to be logged? And are they complaints only from Thorold residents, or can someone outside our community make a bylaw complaint? And do they have to be can they be anonymous, or do they have to be recorded? I know they don't distribute the information, but just in case, does bylaw track that? Because anyone can make an anonymous call, similar to an anonymous email criticizing council. You'd like to see a name on it so you can respond to it, not specifically responding to the person complaining, but someone asked me that question, so I'd just like clarity on that.
Can you answer that, Jason?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. So in the city of Thorold, bylaw enforcement does respond to complaints. We do accept anonymous complaints, and they could be from anybody. They don't need to be a city of Thorold resident. And I just want to identify as well, we don't only act on a complaint basis, we also act proactively as well.
Okay, that's good to know. And I know we spoke earlier, and I was going to bring a notice of motion. I'll just leave it for that time because we had that discussion earlier.
I've got that noted for when we reach that. And
then the other item I just wanted to get clarity on, because I've had a couple people and I've witnessed this myself. Is it appropriate for bylaw officers, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our director, is it appropriate for bylaw officers to break a bylaw to issue a parking ticket or an infraction?
Go ahead, Jason.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all City of Thorold employees are exempt from the parking and traffic bylaw when conducting city business. Not that we endorse doing so. Sometimes it cannot be circumvented, but we try to encourage the officers to not take advantage of that exemption and try to park legally wherever possible.
Well, I think through your standard operating procedures, I think that needs to be reviewed. One instance, they put me at risk where they parked on Collier Road, double parked, flashing lights. I tried to get around them and I almost got hit by a car. They should have been parked in the individual's driveway off no parking. So I think it's important, if we're gonna be issuing bylaw enforcement, doing it very stringently, that we follow the same rules. So if an officer is trying to issue a parking ticket and they can't find a parking spot, they shouldn't be able to just double park and create another opportunity for an accident. That's the reason why we don't want people parking where they're parking, for safety reasons. So I think that needs to be revisited, so I'll leave that with Mr. Simpson to look at it under the standard operating procedures. And I know we're gonna have some bylaw information coming later in terms of rental housing information. So I think that needs to be revisited, that, just because you can break the law to issue a ticket, you shouldn't be able to, because I think that sets a bad precedence in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on these? Go ahead, Councillor Duro.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to Jason. Jason, I see the numbers for the new residential licenses issued. I know it's a contentious issue in our community. Just seems like there's way, way, way more rentals than they're being reported by the owners. And I'm just wondering what the strategy is going forward, or is that going to be in our upcoming report, that bylaw that you're going to be producing? Because it's the calls I get they're unbelievable. Like a whole street, people are telling me their whole street is people from out of town that own the buildings, and so that's one of my concerns. I just wanted an opinion. You don't have to give me an exact answer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are aware or speculate that there are hundreds of other rental properties out there that have not been licensed yet. Every day we have officers out there investigating. I would say I don't have the statistics as to how many open investigations we have at this time, but there are a significant number. And unfortunately, a part of any law enforcement is we have to do our due diligence and a proper investigation before we go and accuse people of violating a bylaw. We have to make sure we have sufficient evidence to do so. But to answer your question, anytime we have the opportunity that we attend proactively, doing investigations specifically for residential rental licensing. But anytime we attend a property for any other matter as well, we try to gather evidence to identify whether or not that property may be a rental property.
Jason, you think, like, is that one department or area that you probably need more employees in the future?
To be honest with you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think I have enough data to really identify whether or not that would be required.
Okay, thanks for your honesty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. First, I gotta go to Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jason. Jason, I'm looking at the snow removal row, and boy, 2022, that number really took a jump. I'm assuming it's because we now have more bylaw officers on the road, but also if you could just clarify, is this due to improper snow removal on sidewalks or parking in the roadways and blocking snow plows? I'm just curious where the bulk of them are coming from. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, honestly, the majority of these we had a few complainants call in and submit several dozen complaints at one time from a single individual, and there were a few individuals that did that, so that would be why the numbers were so significant. With that said, however, regardless of how we received it, in a lot of cases, the violations did exist. So it was just due to inadequate maintenance of the sidewalks, not from city staff, but from those that are required to clear the snow.
Thank you. So it sounds like we need an even better education system out there, perhaps bulletins or something in the winter. All right, thank you very much.
Councillor D'Angelo, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just, again, I like the education part. I know I'm critical at times here, but I think as we move into the snow season, we have more parking enforcement officers that we have to get out there ahead of this and inform our citizens that there is, and if I could just get clarity, what is the fee for a snow inhibiting vehicle on the road? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Do you know what it is? I don't know what it is.
Through Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I don't have that number off the top in my memory right now, off the top of my head. I can certainly provide it. I can identify as well, though, that I did have a meeting with our communications staff this morning and did highlight the desire to improve communication for not only parking, but any other snow-related event in the near future.
I think it's critical as we grow. There's more cars on the road. There'll be more snowing, snow issues, more parking enforcement. I would also suggest, through you, Mr. Mayor, that you speak to the BUSU president and get them to notify their students that they should be planning for their parking arrangements for the winter time, so that we don't get emails from parents complaining that their son or daughter got a parking ticket. We should be ahead of this curve, educating them to understand that we need our roads clear for our snow maintenance, because they do a great job. They could even do a better job if there's no cars on the road. They could do it quicker and more often, and we'd be even more appreciative of them. But they're putting our plows at risk with damaging vehicles and causing other issues. So any way we can get that information out, especially through Brock, through the students, that helps part of the population. And then again, our own communications, website, yourself. I think that's critical. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The next one wasn't pulled. Tender award pumper tanker. We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So now we're on PWCS 108 2023 sidewalk at Linden Street East and Norman Street South. And Councillor DeAngelo, I think you pulled that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend staff. Mr. Holman did a fabulous job here, that he was proactive in trying to get the sidewalk corrected, not waiting for council because we would have lost time. There's money in the budget, so I do want to commend staff. I know sometimes I'm critical, but at the same time, when they do a great job, something proactive like this, they should be recognized for their efforts. I think you did a great job for this, so anyone then goes to the beer store eventually will have a nice clean sidewalk to get there and help stimulate our economy. Thank you.
And that was a very quick turnaround on that. Yes, yes. Okay, so we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The last one is 1114 PWCS 100 2023 tender award tree planting contract. Again, I think Councillor DeAngelo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a few comments on this. Excited to see that we're moving forward with this tendering. The only questions I have here regarding the tender, because next budget time, I know we put 30,000 away for tree planting. This council is very proactive in wanting more trees planted. I'll be pushing to up that budget. I'm just wondering if this tender will help, if we increase the budgeted amount going to tree planting from a city perspective, I know there's a component here from the developer perspective, can we up our budget and still get trees that are at part of this contractual agreement we have with the nursery?
Go ahead, Sean.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we would normally negotiate something if our contract documents actually say any modification of more than 10%, we have to renegotiate the prices, but usually when you have more quantity, you actually get a better price.
Okay, well, that's excellent to hear, because our budget is about 60 trees a year from a city standpoint. I don't think that's a lot of trees, so I think we need to move forward in getting that number up. And then the second component of these trees is, if a citizen wants a tree, what's the proper mechanism for them to ask for a tree on the city portion of their property?
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Henry. So we have a reporting process. It's on our city's website. They can go into that, request a tree. If we've removed a tree, we'll replace it. So that's how they go about that.
If they don't have access to a computer through Mr. Mayor, can they call into the city? Would that also work for them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they can do that as well.
Okay, I encourage citizens to be interactive and deal with their issues directly with the city. So those that are requesting trees, at least I know where to push that. And the next question is, like, did we plant 60 trees this past year? And if so, is there a good planting time for the trees?
Dave?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We're on track for our planting numbers this year. We still do have roughly another month that we can plant with a good survival rate.
Okay, I just didn't know if we wanted to mark it in the spring or the fall, trying to push to make sure we get these trees out. The more we could get planted out there, the better. But again, it's communication with our citizens to let them know what's available.
Okay.
That was it for question.
Anyone
Thanks,
else?
guys. Appreciate it.
Anyone else on the trees? Go ahead, Councillor Durham.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to staff, I'm just curious, because I couldn't believe some of those tender quotes, the second and third, the third one especially, but, and I've bought lots of trees for my property, and $500 usually gets me a great 15, 20-foot pine tree or blue spruce that gets put in and taken care of, staked. I'm just wondering, how much of the $500 per tree for Gould is the tree cost actually, and I'm just curious what their employee costs are.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that number, because what we've done is we've asked them to bid for it to be completely installed, so they've included that in their price. I'm sure it varies from one person to another, depending on how much effort they're putting into growing the trees to a 2-inch caliber tree.
So do they look after the tree after it's planted, or no, that once they plant it? Oh, they do?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
there's a full 1-year maintenance period on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank our staff. I know I've had a few people get trees replanted, and they're very quick and efficient in getting that done. So thank you for the good job that you guys do out there and keeping those trees going for people out there. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a mover and seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we move on to items for consideration. The first item up is CLK 12-2023, City Hall door relocation. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this one? I got Councillor O'Hara and Councillor Didavides. Is there anyone that wants to talk or speak or ask questions regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Open and shut. That's very good there, Councillor Ham. 12-2, DF 18-2023, Development Charges Bylaw Update. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that one? Councillor Sentence and Councillor Decker. Okay, that one's up there. Questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the appropriate staff member, I'm confused by the provincial government saying there's no more development charges. So if that's the case, why would we do a background study, or are there development charges?
There are development charges, but not, some things have been taken or reduced. I think it's regarding affordable housing, but I'll ask.
Through Mr. Mayor, you're correct. I think maybe about a month or so ago, I did circulate to council some of the exemptions that have been instituted for development charges. We do have development charges, but there are a number of exemptions and that the province has introduced. But are there development charges? Yes. Are they as high as they used to be? No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
I know in the background study, it's going to use a lot of the capital costs that are associated with projects moving forward. Will our strategic plan have any impact on the background study? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think what will happen is it depends on how detailed the strategic plan is in terms of identifying growth-related capital projects, because that really is the only thing that we can recoup from development charges are growth-related projects.
Again, going back to our strategic plan, any suggestion of when it's going to be starting?
DAL, Manoj?
Through Mr. Mayor, the RFP is being finalized. We will put it out this week, most likely tomorrow, actually, and we'll keep it open till the 17th of November, about 3 weeks for interested parties to submit their proposals. We will evaluate it and bring it to council on December 10th or 12th, whatever the date is, meeting in December, to get it endorsed, and then hire a consultant this year and then start the process then. Thank you.
So we're going to be busy with strategic plan, budget, so buckle down.
Excellent. Well, that's great news, because throughout my political career here, I've always supported that growth should pay for growth, that it shouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers. So we have to make sure any growth-related projects via strategic plan or capital plans going forward need to be in that background study so that we can appropriately charge those developers for that fee. Again, new stuff shouldn't be borne by the current taxpayers here in the city of Thorold. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Doro.
Through Mr. Mayor, I agree with what Councillor DeAngelo just said, because for years, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I tried to get us to quantify how much it was costing existing residents. I know Lincoln did it, and it was around $500. We voted against my request. But I just wanted to ask the Director of Finance, so we're not getting as much development charges as we have in the past. Can you quantify it, just an opinion in a percent, or is it a lot? Is it a little? Is it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a little difficult to quantify. You know, you look at things like historically the development charge background study. We can fund it from development charges. That goes away the minute that we pass the new development charge background study, because that's one of the items that has been disallowed by the province. You look at things like exemptions for affordable housing, exemption for, you know, certain apartment buildings with, depending on the number of bedrooms, they get a reduction. You look at historically when you passed a background study, if your charge came out at $1,000, you could charge $1,000. Now what the province has said is no, you have to phase it in. So the first year you charge 80%, the next year you charge 85%, you know, until you get to 100%. So there's a lot of nuances that will assist developers, but will reduce our ability to have growth pay for growth.
Maria, is this going to be a large burden on taxpayers? As already, just according to other community studies, we're already paying, who knows, anywhere from 500 to and up. So is this going to be a big burden, in your opinion, going forward?
Through Mr. Mayor, again, I can't quantify it, but certainly any shift away from development charges will be borne by the taxpayers. So will this have an impact on the taxpayers? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
The big thing, Councillor DeRose, that we have in our favor is we're finally getting the commercial industrial growth, which is huge for our tax base, and
I just, like, I can see.
That's something that hopefully is gonna offset the loss we're seeing on the residential side.
Yeah, I don't mind supporting the nonprofit housing and the, all that grouping, but when it's lining the developers' pockets, I have a problem with that. I'm a taxpayer, and, you know, our finances are limited, so I'll just leave it at that, but I hope this gets changed back one day. I don't know when, but hopefully it does. Thank you.
Okay, so we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 12.3, DS 54, 2023, furniture purposes and hardware install for staff workspaces. Can I get a mover and a seconder? I got Councillor Hanley and I got Councillor O'Hare. Is there any discussion or any comments to be made regarding this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. EWCS 91 2023, Canada Games Park Walking Track Agreement and Facility Allocation Policy Review. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Sentence and Councillor Didavides, and that's reports up on the board. Are there any questions, comments, please? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the one that asked for this during budget time. I thought it would be a great opportunity for residents to be able to use the indoor walking track at the Walker Sport and Ability Center. For those of you who don't know it, I think it's a great facility. And I think the community needs to use it more. The issue here is we didn't get what we asked for. It's a little disheartening, being a major tenant. We were given 4 of the 5 days and different time slots. It is what it is, I guess, because if you read the report for the allocation criteria, we're 6th on the list, I guess, for this sort of usage, which again is unfortunate because being a tenant who pays about $900,000 a year to rent, and then you can't rent, it's a little disturbing. But again, I'll leave this up to council whether they want to spend the money to take the hours we didn't really want or not. But I just thought I would voice my displeasure. I know staff worked really hard to try to get this done, but unfortunately, we don't really have much say. We get.
Well, I know that staff did work hard, and I know that staff's also working on, there's future meetings on usage format.
Yeah, but I did say staff worked hard.
No, I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I was agreeing with you. But I
Okay.
also said that they're working as well on the usage agreement to try and make some modifications.
Great, because they got 36 more years to do it.
Anyway, anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I look at the times, and they're sort of all over, and they're more late evening ones. Most likely, the place will be vacant anyways. Anyone could go walk on the track. I just find it hard to sort of swallow a bill of almost $15,000 or $14,400 for this when it's a facility that we lease. The owner's number 2 on the list, but we're number 6 on the list. I think we should maybe direct staff to work with the consortium to block hours for the community, not just the Thorold community, because we never said it was just about Thorold. It's about for everyone, and then we shouldn't have to pay for it. You know, $17,000, that represents to me 34 more trees that we could plant in our community that will have long-lasting impact on the environment than spending $17,000 on a building that we're already spending $900,000 on. So I know I supported it in principle coming forward, but when I sort of look at this in more detail, I just find it hard to support it at this point in time when we have other needs in our community that far outweigh paying for something that we're already paying for. So that's my stance on the issue.
And it's, I think most of you understand that the majority of hours is open to the public during Monday to Friday, but it's during the day. And it's heavily used by the Thorold community, I can tell you. Probably more than any other community. If you go there and see people walking, it's people from our community.
Well, that's my point, Mr. Mayor. That's my point exactly, that the consortium should say, okay, this is going to be for public use, and nobody has to pay for it. It's part of the absorption of the budget that we already pay the $900,000 for. This is gravy for them. So I think technically we get a third of it back, but really, why should we pay it in the first place when the building was built for the usage and have people out there, you know, exercising, using the facility, and we're just paying for it. Like today it's the walking track, tomorrow it's going to be something else. It's just continuous, so I'm not supporting it.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. So in this, staff is seeking direction too, which I think you're already doing, talking with the consortium group about the priority list, which is great, and that should be looked at. I will agree with everybody on that. That should be looked at. But again, you got to watch what you ask for, because if you want more, you got to pay for it. So it's a catch-22, but they're looking at that. So my question is to Councillor Longo. Do you still want to, is this worth going ahead, in your opinion, to pay the money to do it, or will we get that time anyways?
In my opinion, Councillor Sentence, since you asked, I would do it. And the reason is I don't want to sound flippant over money, because dollars matter. And $15,000 is a fair bit of money, but there are people who want track time at this time of day because they work all day. So to give them some benefit, yes, I would do it. It is a fair bit of money, but, you know, again, you look at this facility, we spend a lot more money for unused time there than this for the year. So yes, I would. Looking at it, I would support it.
Okay, then, Mr. Mayor, I said I would support it last time Councillor Longo brought it up. I'll support it this time, so can we move this?
Well, we got other speakers.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I didn't look up.
So let's get through the speakers. Let's go ahead, Councillor Giroux.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I didn't see it in the report, it might be there somewhere. If the finance director, just where's that money going to be coming from? Is it budgeted already, or?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we did have, I believe it's $17,000 included in 2023 budget.
For the specific use?
For this was
Okay.
budgeted for.
Right, thank you.
Councillor O'Hare, then Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this as well. Any time when we can offer a facility where citizens will be able to get out, get moving, stay fit, this is all a positive thing, especially with winter coming and roads, sidewalks being icy. This will be a nice, comfortable place to go and walk and enjoy the company. Councillor Longo can tell you how well attended it is. It's a great facility for this purpose. And I really also agree with staff seeking to see if we can change the allocation criteria. I think that's important. And I just want to point out that Thorold is not alone at sitting in 6th place for the allocation positioning. St. Catharines does as well. So perhaps this might be readdressed, and maybe next year we'll be talking about the 6 to 8 times that Councillor Longo initially wanted. But I fully support it.
Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll support Councillor Longo. I know that the walking track upstairs is much more comfortable because of the floor, but there are other spaces that you can walk on the ground floor. It's a little bit harder, and you can walk around the arena as well, although it is difficult to get there during the day, so evenings are a lot better, but there are those other spaces that we can walk at around the track as well. But I will support it.
Councillor Dedivides.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this too. In winter months coming up, they need a nice, warm, safe spot to walk around, like my colleague Tim O'Hara said, and any exercise, especially if there's a lot of seniors using it, it's a nice, safe spot. So I definitely will support this.
Go ahead. Thank you. Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, I agree. With this time of year and all the mental health issues that are prevalent in our community, in our region, definitely I'll support this. I just want to make sure that all the climate enthusiasts walk to the walking track and don't drive their car.
Okay, is any further discussion? Seeing none. We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, up next, PWCS 104 2023, James White Arena Future Use Strategy. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the report, please? I got Councillor DeRose and I got Councillor Decker. And the report's now on the floor, and I'll open the floor for questions to, I guess, Jeff, will you be handling questions, or anybody else that you need to move? Are there any questions regarding this report? Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question. I know there's been a lot of people seeking to use the old arena for, whether it's for lacrosse or for some dry sport activities, whatever that will generate income to the city. So personally, I would like to see us maybe rent it out to potential users until we decide what we're actually going to do with the arena. But Jeff, can you attest to that? We've had a lot of people asking to use the facility, or?
That's true, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we've had a number of meetings with soccer clubs, pickleball, and a number of other groups, user groups that already have programs on our facilities, in our facility, and want to expand them. So this is an opportunity to give everybody a chance to provide some information about how they would like to use that facility, and we can bring it back to council for their consideration.
Thanks, Jeff.
Go ahead, Councillor Ham.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Not to be cynical or nothing, but did the building stop sliding down the hill? Because when I go back to the engineer's report and the reasoning why we were closing this arena, because it was no good for use anymore, because engineering standards had it that the building was shifting down the hill. Did that stop? Is the building okay now? Because 5 years ago, in 2019, I read a report that said the building was unstable and was basically near condemnation. It was finished. Has it all of a sudden been revitalized?
That's right, Mr. Mayor. The condition assessment that was completed in 2019 did recommend that we spend considerable amount of money just to make it safe for the community to use. And that will be part of this whole consideration here. If there are some capital investments that need to take place in order for certain users to use that group, to use that the facility, then that group will be responsible, I suspect, either through user fees or some other type of lease agreement for any improvements. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. The short answer is we will continue to assess the condition of the building and make sure that it is safe for use. Otherwise, we'll shut it down and mothball it.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if I can just follow up on that. My concern is this, I think the report said $6.7 million, or roughly around there, we would have to spend on that building to bring it up to code. Because to me, to make the building safe, all issues not have to be addressed, not just some, so we could use the building. Because when you read that report, that was in 2019, pre-COVID. So now after COVID, I would imagine that number is probably about double, $12 million. So if we're going to do something with this building, we got to make a major investment in this here, millions and millions of dollars. And I remember the reasoning we done the Canada Games building was because this building wasn't viable for us really anymore. And all of a sudden it's coming out of the ashes like it's going to be resurfacing. So if we go by the budget report from then, I think it was 6.7 or 6.8 million. It's double. So can I ask you through staff, are we expecting to see then during the budget allocations of millions of dollars to bring the James White Arena up to standard?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. We don't have any plans to make any capital investments on that building. In fact, any reference to it in our capital asset management plan, it doesn't exist. So we're not planning to spend any more money on it. I can tell you though, because I have my staff working in it on a daily basis, that it is safe for the use that it's currently being used for.
Thank you. And I think the goal is, with this report, is you're talking a 3-year window, right? And then the report will give the long-term council's decision what they want to do long-term. Is that correct? Okay.
If I can, just one more follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
May I suggest then, seeing that the engineer's report, by the time this comes forward, is going to be 5 years old, maybe we need to get an engineer's report again on this facility to see where we stand before we even consider doing anything. Because if you go back and read that report, that building's not in too good a shape. You know, so if we're going to move forward, I want to use every piece of property we have. Like there's 22,000 square feet there, something like that. I want to use it too, but at what cost to the taxpayers? And we got an outdated engineering report on it, and the last one didn't go over good as far as I'm concerned when you look at the engineering of the building. It's in dire need of millions and millions of dollars of updates.
So I think that's what this is going to do, Councillor Hanley. Bring that back to us, okay? Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was just wondering, staff, Jeff and Maria, is it possible for any potential uses that you can just do a brief or basic cost-benefit analysis? Only because I don't want to be subsidizing, and no offense to any community groups outside of our city, but I don't want to be subsidizing St. Catharines Lacrosse or Welland Pickleball. Like, it's just not, I don't think it's appropriate for staff payers. So I just want to know if we can get it down to dollars and cents and do a cost-benefit analysis, because they can rent the surface, of course, but it's going to cost staff time and all the other utilities that we need to keep it open for that time.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a fair question that when we come back with, once we know who might be interested and what might be required in order to keep the doors open and the lights on and accessible, heated and all that thing, that there should be some type of financial analysis and some type of comparison for opportunity cost.
And Jeff, do you presently, thank you for that answer, do you presently know what it costs to keep it open for an hour of someone using it offhand, or is it something you got to delve into or look into?
I don't have it off the top of my head, Councillor, but I can certainly include that type of analysis.
You could include it in the report or whatever.
In our report.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Dindovino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, I sent a party to you. They wanted to rent that arena, take ownership in it, put a big capital investment in it. Should he come to council and make a plan up, like to present a plan to us? Because they will really want to get the ball rolling. They have a really good plan to use that James White facility, and they have money behind them. Like, what's their next step? He phoned me today and wants to know what's his next step.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I wanted to try and you know, instead of having all these groups show up and ask you to use a facility, I wanted to kind of give everyone a picture of who else might be interested before you make any commitment to these groups. So the process that calls for, in the short term, the expression of interest allows those groups to come in and put their proposals together. And then it may be that council wants to negotiate with certain groups. It may be that we want to use it as a kind of a fee-for-service type of thing. It really depends on the costs and what they need and how often they want to use the facility. But you're right, there are some groups that are interested in, you know, putting in a turf surface, you know, lacrosse, ball hockey, soccer, and baseball.
See, the person I'm
all
speaking
at some
about, he
point in
wants it
time
year
are
round, he's
interested.
gonna take it for like 5-10 years, but he just wants to know what's his next step, like I spoke to him
Yeah,
today.
so the
He
next
wants to
step
start
will
getting this ball
be-
rolling.
The report coming to council.
Or can he come to council, and can he
Will
present?
be to submit their proposal as part of our EOI process.
Okay, so-
And we should have that out shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to put in a request to have that engineering study forwarded or sent around to councilors again, should they wish to read it. I know I'd be very interested in it.
That's, yeah, okay, the one, yeah. Okay, any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple comments. I liked what Councillor DeVitis said, you know, having a outside party come in and potentially take it over. That would be ideal for me. From the city standpoint, I don't think it's a good idea. We spent a lot of money on recreation. I'll just give you a couple quick numbers here. Our arenas, we had net expenditures in 2019 of $782,000. In 2023, our net expenditures for our two arenas we use now were $2.23 million. We almost tripled our arena costs in 4 years. It's a lot of money, and I could only see this costing us more if we were going to update it. I honestly think what we need to do is have these groups who want to use it go up here and rent the new facility. And I say that in all sincerity. Go up and use that facility. It's there, it's built, it's state-of-the-art, 21,000 square foot of gym space. Pickleball, we were told, haven't seen it yet, but have these groups go up there and work a deal out. It'll do two things. It'll give them the opportunity to play their sport, and it'll lower the operational losses for the 4 consortium tenants. So, again, recreation's great, but we got to draw the line somewhere. And a 1936 building isn't the place to do it, I don't think, unless somebody wants to take that risk in the private sector. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see this as step one, just getting information regarding expressions of interest, but I see this as part of our strategic plan. What does the city want to do with that piece of property? And I'm like Councillor Longo. I throw the whole table up there. Is it affordable housing? Is it a city hall moving back? We're busting at the seams here. Let's look at other alternative uses, not necessarily just another dry land facility, because we have one up the street here. So if we're going to start dumping money in there, let's make sure it fits into our strategic plan for the city overall and our needs overall. Is recreation one of the top needs in our community? And if there's someone who wants to buy the property and then do that, then that's an option too. So if there's a developer or a businessman that wants to do that, throw that on the table too. This goes back to when I sat on the Hydro Commission, when we looked at what we should do with our hydro. We looked at all the options, selling the hydro, leasing the hydro, or maintaining itself. You got to throw everything on the table to get a good indication of what can be done. So this way, from a council standpoint, we can make that determination. We can't just say, let's look at it from a recreational point of view. We have a lot of other needs in our community that have to start being addressed. Affordable housing is one of them. That could be an encompassing piece of property in the downtown area. Where else would you want to put something like that? Is that a possibility? Partnership with the region, Niagara Regional Housing. There's opportunities. The province is looking for more housing. There's a good example. So I think that needs to be thrown on the table. I'm not saying it's the answer. I think we need to look at everything, but I don't want, for the expressions of interest, I would say everything and anything goes for that piece of property until council makes a determination of where they want to head with it.
Thank you. Okay, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PWCS. Was that the one, right? That's, yeah, 107, 2023 municipal operations budget. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Hanley, Councillor Sentence. The report's up here, and I'll open the floor for questions. We got Sean Dunsmore and Jeff Holman here to answer questions, and I'm sure Maria might get involved too. Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm not sure who to direct this to, I guess Sean. So just a small question, the west side enlarged overhead door that will be replaced. What's going to happen to the old one? Can it be repurposed? Can it be donated? Or is it just heading to landfill?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we worked out a deal with the contractor to return it back to the...
Awesome. Very good. Thank you. All right. And I just want to... no, that's a statement, so I'll make that after. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions regarding this? I got a mover and a seconder. Oh, did you have another?
Not a question, a statement. Okay.
Well, you had the floor, so keep going.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say, because it's been questioned in the past, and this was Councillor Longo's suggestion to have these impact on the environment and climate change added to these reports. And this is an example, a perfect example where it's very required for this type of change. So I just want to applaud that move to have this included in our reports. So thank you for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we had the amended agenda to add 12.7, and that's the motion from public forum. And there it is. Subsequent to the public forum meeting on October 24th, 2023, Council directs staff to prepare a fulsome report with respect to the enforcement measures taken in November 22nd. I would put on November 22nd by city staff and city agents regarding the 40 River Street, including recommendations from staff. Okay? Is that anyone, do you want to speak to that, Councillor?
No, I think that captures the discussion at the meeting we had earlier regarding the Public Works Forum, that we wanted to direct it to staff to look at that. The only thing that's sort of missing in there is to work with the proponent to get an exact ask from him. He wasn't 100% clear at the presentation of what he was asking for, so we needed to make sure that's part of the report, so we fully understand what he's asking for.
Very good.
If the other members may want to speak, if that wasn't...
No, that's good. I didn't get a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor D'Angelo and Councillor Decker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, the notice of motion, Councillor D'Angelo, you wanted to bring that one, but first we're going to have to waive the procedure, but you want to speak first?
Yeah, I'm going to ask council to waive the procedural bylaw so I can bring a notice to motion forward here this evening. It stems from the Public Works or Public Forum meeting that we had earlier. What's happening is we are waiting to move out to a tendering process for property standard cleanups. Right now we have a firm that's been selected. It's Urge the Purge. I think it's been approximately 4 years since we've put that out for tender. That won't happen immediately, but I want to bring a motion that deals with some estimates to the land, to the residents that have these orders against them. So I can speak more in detail there,
No,
but
wait
that was
till we get-
the gist of.
So what we're doing now, we need a 2/3 majority, is to waive the procedure bylaw to bring this motion forward. Okay, so what we're voting on now is just to waive the procedure bylaw. I got a mover, Councillor DeAngelo, can I have a seconder to waive that? Councillor DeRose. All those in favor? That's carried, we had more than 2/3. So now you can put the motion forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to keep this simple and as quickly as possible. The motion that I wanted to put on the floor is that all property standard orders that require a cleanup until we have a new tendering process in place should have a estimate from the current provider that's given to the resident for their understanding that if they don't clean the property up, this is the cost that will be associated with the cleanup, and that gives them at least a general idea of what it will be.
What they're up against.
What they're up against, that's, yeah.
Okay, so that, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Hanley. I'll wait till he gets that up and then make sure everybody's happy with it. And then if they are, then we'll ask if anyone wants to speak anymore. If not, we'll take the vote. We're keeping you busy tonight, Nick. When you sit in the hot seat, you're in the hot seat, you know that.
He's doing great, by the way.
Mr. Mayor, while he's putting that up, I just wanted to make one mention that I think that might be good in this process, is that there is I don't want to say a formal agreement, but a signed agreement between the bylaw office and the resident. Just that if you present this as an option and they need to give an answer within a short time span, and if they're agreeing to have it or they're going to deal with it themselves, I think to avoid miscommunication, I think there should be some sort of agreement that moves forward between bylaw and the resident. So I can leave that, it's more operational.
Yeah, it's operational. So I think what he's saying there, Jason, is if we do that and they say, this is the cost, you got X amount of days, if you want to clean it, fine. If you don't clean it by this period, then this is what it's going to have. So it's more, you know where we're coming from that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand the request to have an estimate provided to the property owner prior to conducting any work on the property. My one concern is requiring a property owner to sign off on it, realizing that, of course, there would be a lot of reluctance for anybody to sign off on the city doing work on their property. So if I could ask for further clarification on what the ask is for there.
Okay, all right, I'm not looking, it doesn't necessarily have to be a signature. I think some acknowledgement, because some of the issues that I hear back constantly is, I tried calling bylaw, they didn't get back to me. I think we just need to make sure that everyone's on the same page, whatever mechanism that is, a signature, a registered letter sent out to someone doesn't work, because someone in a rural property has to go to their mailbox, doesn't always end up at their house. They have to go either to Pelham or Welland to pick up their mail. That could take 2 or 3 days. So that's my concern, is that there's a connection somehow, so the information's being processed in a timely fashion, not just sent by mail. I don't think that's worked. That's created problems for us, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm just offering a suggestion. Could be a better one. I can leave that with the director to come up with a good solution.
Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could propose a recommendation that if it's in council's interest to move forward with the proposal to require an estimate, we do that at this time. I do have intentions of bringing recommendations on changes to that bylaw before the end of the year for council's consideration, and maybe we can they'll give me an opportunity to put some thought into it and make some proposals to council for their consideration on how the other items are identified.
And I think that Councillor DeAngelo brought this forward as a stopgap until we get the wholesome new policy, whatever. Am I correct?
Well, yes, I'd like to see new policy, but we're also trying to deal with a tendering process,
Yeah.
but we're trying to make this a fair.
Trying to get this to get us through to that.
Yeah, make this fair and equitable and move the property standards forward and not have a meeting here every Tuesday regarding property standards.
Okay, can we get that up so we can look at it and then we can move forward? Okay, council directs that all property standard orders requiring property cleanup shall require the organization conducting the work to provide the property owner with an estimate of the cost prior to conducting the work. Does that capture what you want?
Yeah, so it would be provided to the property owner.
Okay? Everybody good with that? We had a mover and a seconder. Go ahead, Councillor Deputy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Jason, can we go bring a third party on to someone's private property and give an estimate? Will we get in a little trouble for that if someone comes, like, I just thought of something, how can you get, hey, come give me an estimate, walk on someone's property, and he tells you to get the hell off and take the guy with you?
I think probably the best scenario
Yeah,
is he's
so
there.
I don't know how we would do that.
He's there with one of our bylaws.
Okay, well, is that still okay to walk on the property with someone else like that?
It's a different, go ahead, Jay.
Through Mr. Mayor, so the city does have the authority to bring a contractor on somebody's property if it's the result of not complying with the bylaw. So it is feasible. And if I could, while I have the opportunity here, just propose an amendment to the motion, and just rather than identifying property standard orders, because there are various types of orders that deal with the same situation. Maybe if we could just amend the wording to identify that all property or bylaw rectification orders requiring property cleanup.
Okay, bylaw rectification orders. That's what Jason's recommending.
Same mover and seconder to.
And they're good with that, Councillor D'Angelo
that
and
change.
Councillor Hanley? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Are there any other notices of motion for the next meeting? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be bringing a motion forward regarding grants available through Trees Canada.
Thank you. Okay, I've got statement by councillors. I'll call on Councillor O'Hara for his statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one, I just want to talk about how we are growing so quickly. It takes a lot of different departments and people to run a city. We've had many celebrated photo ops, announcements, ribbon cuttings, lots of great things done. But behind the scenes, there's work continually being done to help keep the city moving forward. And a lot of this work is not pretty. It doesn't grab your attention, but it's necessary to solve problems, whether it's signage or sewers, drainage, some of the things we've heard tonight. And as I said, not glamorous work, but necessary work. And so tonight I'd just like to thank and acknowledge Steve Santo, Manager of Public Works, and his very capable crew for keeping the city running, and with all the great work you do behind the scenes. I know because I've experienced it several times that when there is an issue, you and your crew address it and remedy it in a timely fashion. And on behalf of the city, I'd like to thank you for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
The other one is addressed.
Hey?
This is already.
Yeah, I know. Okay, up next, we're going to move into closed session. So can I get a mover and seconder to move into closed session? Councillor Sentence and Councillor Decker. Okay, so nobody's participating electronically, so I don't have to read that part, correct? All councils here?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so council do now move into closed session for the purposes of receiving information of a confidential nature respecting, number one, a matter respecting a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by the municipality further to Section 239K of the Municipal Act, 2001, Kiefer Mansion property. And number two, a matter respecting a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by the municipality further to Section 239K of the Municipal Act, 2001, 1375 Eggeter Way. I had the mover and seconder was Councillor Sentence and Councillor Decker. Okay. So now, all those in favor to move into closed session?